Welcome to Your Pathway to the Emirates, our new podcast channel. Here we will explore exciting real estate opportunities across Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and other Emirates in the UAE. Beyond property, we'll also delve into important topics to support anyone considering a move to the UAE, covering schools, tax, visas, company setup, relocation, and lifestyle. Our goal is to provide a comprehensive, one-stop guide that helps you navigate every step of relocation or investment in this dynamic region. Stay tuned for insights that will empower your journey. So let's get started.
So welcome to our podcast, and today we have both Lisa, Mina and Jamil. And Mina and Jamil from legalcover.ae, and Lisa, as you know, is from CSP Group. So Mina and Jamil, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you do, what your company does, and then we can get into the conversation.
Sure, happy to.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So being part of Legal Cover means we specialize in offering legal protection to our clients. And basically what that means is we try to help them safeguard all of their ventures and investments, or even as an individual, when you're coming to the UAE or living in the UAE, whatever steps happen in your journey, or whatever stumbling blocks you come across, and you need legal advice and support and consultation, that's where we can step in to be that voice of concern to help you and build trust for your next steps and make sure you're making the right decisions as well.
Excellent. I think the first topic for this podcast today will be to do with renting. So both from the expats point of view, renting property there, and from an expat point of view who are purchasing properties to rent. I think it's an important topic, and I'm sure we've got more topics to cover, but I think this will be a good start. So where should we start? Let's start with general, the expat renting property there. So what do they normally have issues with? What are the sort of differences between the UK, if you're aware of the UK renting process, that we can start with?
Yeah, sure. I think to start with Dubai and the UAE overall, actually, it's the safest place to be in the region here. And lots of expats, as you said, coming here for the first time, how the renting process, how's the leasing process and other stuff from the tenant and the landlord perspective. So from the tenant perspective, they just need to make sure they're aware of the upfront costs, as well as the in terms of security deposits, as well as the commissions they're gonna pay for real estate brokers, as well as the agreement they're going to sign. So before all, they can navigate the market in terms of finding the right properties for them, definitely based on their requirements and what they need. For example, a family moving in or individuals or singles, so they can find the right amenities, so to say, for example, next to the school or close to the gym, and other interests of places they want to have. So in terms of renting apartment or villas in the UAE, the most important things to come to the mind is reading the agreement. Apart from finding the genuine certified real estate agent, is the agreement side of it.
Okay.
So my advice is,
what is the agreement called?
It's a tenant agreement, and this tenant agreement should be certified by Ejari, which is Dubai Land Department authorities. They're gonna test this agreement and to make sure you have all the standard terms and conditions in it.
Okay.
So you know what's from your side and as well as from the landlord side. And this is the official documents need to be there.
And is it the same for Abu Dhabi, or is it a different governing body?
It's a different governing body in Abu Dhabi, but it have the same concept. They have to get the contract attested by Abu Dhabi authority. But in Dubai, they call it Ejari.
Okay. And is there a website people can go to make sure these agents or these contracts are legally binding, or is it just a contract and then is there a reference number? How do they check?
Of course, they can go to the Dubai Land Department website, which is dubailand.gov.ae, and they will find all the related information that they need to make sure they have a certified or accredited tenancy contracts.
Okay, and I understand. Obviously, the tenant they got the security deposits to pay, and they pay checks in advance, and they also pay the fees for the agent as well. So maybe you can talk us through that part of it.
Absolutely. So as I said, they have to be aware from the upfront cost. The security deposit is 5% from the total rental. and the rental should be annually renewed and certified and attested by with Ejari. The checks might vary. It depends on the landlord or the real estate agent. Could vary from one check, like a single payment, or could be 12 checks.
Okay, and there's one quick thing. Now, if you're an expat and you're buying a property there, you don't have to have a bank account to collect the rent. You could ask the agent to collect the rent, and they could send it to you to your international bank account. Is that correct? Is that okay and accepted?
Absolutely, that's absolutely right. Because there are lots of property management companies in Dubai, and either they can collect the checks or the real estate agent can collect the check with the proper power of attorney from the owners. And they can do the collections, for example, on the owner's behalf, or they can do the maintenance, the scheduled maintenance, or any communications need to be done with the landlord from the tenant side. It should go through the real estate agent.
Okay, and if the agent or the managing agent or the broker doesn't pay you as a UK resident, would you help with covering that side of things as well, or is there some sort of law that covers that already?
In terms of paying the rent, you mean?
Yes. So if the tenants paid the rent, but then the
Yeah.
agent hasn't paid the landlord, who's not a resident in the UAE, so they don't have an Emirates ID or a visa, is there a legal process to claim that money back, and how long does that usually take? Or is that even an issue? Because maybe that's not even an issue there.
It could be. It depends on the agreement that the landlord has with the brokers. So it should be, I think, binding agreements and make sure all the clauses included and what's the next step. Because in Dubai, they always have a dispute department in Dubai, land department, and this is where I think they need to look into this case. But again, the agreement should be there and all the clauses should be accurate and certified.
And this is something you can help with as well as part of your service.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're more than happy to help anybody who has any as Mina has said initially. So we are the first in the UAE who provide the legal-based subscription platform. And this is where we can advise the landlord reviewing the contracts, make sure he's getting paid what he's renting off, and all aspect of this kind of dispute might happen in the future. It's also the same thing from the broker to the tenant, for example. If they have any bounced checks, it should be some rules and regulation in the agreement. It should be, for example, evictions should be also instated in the agreements.
And how does the first of all the bounce check side? Now it used to be a legal issue before. You'd lose your rights there if you bounce a check. Now I understand that's changing, or has it changed? And what's the process now if there is a bounce check?
Yes, it is changed actually. The bounce check now, it goes different aspect from it. So they can, based on the agreement with the real estate brokers or the landlord, they can just wait for 30 days before submitting the check to the police. And also on the other aspect that affect the tenant, that will also affect his credit record on the central bank.
Oh, okay.
So this is another aspect of it as well.
And if we go into tenancy, actually, so what's the common issues a tenant faces with landlords and that you normally deal with there?
Sure, I can speak to a couple. There's a couple of issues we usually get. So a sudden request to leave without a clear notice because there's no clarity in that Ejari document that Jamil was referencing to. There was some reading that they didn't actually look into, maybe the fine print, and they're concerned that because they didn't make a payment, that they might be kicked out. So they come to us because they're getting messages on WhatsApp from their landlord saying things for them to either move out or make a decision, or threatening in some way or form, not in a aggressive threat, but obviously in a way that they're looking at the contract that they signed. Or a sudden rise in rental increase, that's another one. Also, when there's even, the actual starts and steps of when you're looking at moving to another rental facility or another room or another actual area in Dubai, how do you exit in a current Ejari contract, right? So there's a couple of ways that we get these kind of concerns and worries from our tenants. And for us, it's just not just being a way we can mediate between them and the landlord. we have to actually understand the whole situation. And that's where the legal advice is really powerful, because it's having your own in-house legal team without the in-house bill. Put it that way, basically. You've got a lawyer you can speak to, somebody that understands the UAE industry, somebody that understands the new rules that have been put in place. Like you said, you might have referenced something back in the day when somebody bounced a check. They could be, they might have to exit, or might have to just leave their job, or, there might be a lot of things that they have to cut off. There's a lot of things now that prevent that, or there's some slower escalation to things going wrong in that scenario. So that's where we help them really prevent those kind of extreme scenarios.
Okay, so although they should still abide by the rules and regulations and not really try and bounce any checks there, because it adversely affects their credit and their future there,
exactly,
it's not a straightforward losing Emirates ID and out of the country. There is a different process now.
Yeah, and I think that's a myth we need to bust, because that's where the lawyers can come in and really support. And again, the UAE law, one of the most unique things about it is that it's constantly evolving as the country is evolving, right? And often for the better for everyone, to make sure, they're having better lives for businesses, business owners, employees, tenants, families, everyone. And that's the amazing thing about it. So when things change and when things adjust, we're not all aware of it, right? But the lawyers have to keep up and maintain that knowledge. And hence, that's why they need to, be the ones that we can push the client to and say, look, we can't give you the answer, but then we know the lawyers can actually reference the specific law for this specific emirate. It could be Ajman, it could be Abu Dhabi, it could be Sharjah, even Dubai. They all have certain differences and niches in their law, which is great. And that's a good way for us to maintain our knowledge as well and help our clients better.
No, it is important for people to know that the different emirates have different rules and regulations. They're all based probably on the same principles, but they all are slightly different. So Ras Al Khaimah and Sakum and all the rest of them that are coming up all have different rules, because they're all ruled by different parties, if you like. So they have their own setups. And I understand
That's right.
the rental increase has changed as well, because before, not too long ago, obviously landlords could increase the rent by whatever amount they wanted. Now it's governed by a rental index.
Absolutely.
So it's based on the building. So where a landlord is trying to raise it above a certain rental index, you can have a sort of a discussion again about that. And there is a process to sort of alleviate any issues there.
Absolutely. And I think this always points back to the initial agreement. Jamil was pointing to two really key things. Who's your broker? Who's the landlord? Who are you dealing with? Who's setting up that agreement together? How many years is it? Or how many checks? So how many payments do I need to make to fulfill the amount for a year or 2 year contract, whatever it is that I'm moving into and whatever area I'm going into in Dubai? The whole point, it comes back to prevention. At the time of renewal, or a couple of months before, how are we going to approach it? Is there going to be an agreed increase within that contract, or are we just going to look at the index that you were pointing to just a minute ago, Japesh? Because that's also happens, right? We're not just talking about the individual, it could be families as well. What if you're coming into a villa and you want to be there for 5 years instead of 1 year? Again, you want stability, right? So it's not just about like negotiating a contract every year based on the index. There could be things there that we can also add in a benefit when you have a lawyer looking at the Ejari and saying, look, you're not protected from the index because the index in this area might go up because it's such a popular area, for example. So it's just making long-term decisions like that. People don't factor that in, especially when you're moving to UAE, which is a good thing for us to come in and say, okay, look, let's actually take a step back and see what exactly you need from the place you want to live in.
But does the index overrule the contract, or the contract overrule the index?
It's a great question. From my perspective, I think the whole point of the index was because there was so many agreements going astray, basically. People just quoting numbers out of nowhere without any real facts to back it. And that's why the index is a sort of a one rule, truth in the data, if you will, to go back to for both the landlord and the tenant.
So basically you put the terms in the contract to say the index, then you're protected. If you don't, then there's a bit of a grey area still.
There's always a grey area. And I think that's where the lawyers need to come in and say, if you put this agreement in, the lawyer can say to us, yeah, this is definitely something that we can be happy with you signing. And that's the important. The peace of mind comes from that. Not from me or Jamil, because obviously we're the ones helping the clients actually work with the lawyers, but that's where the lawyers can give us and grant us that peace of mind.
No, it's quite interesting because obviously you help both the landlord and the tenant as needed. That contract is important for both parties.
Precisely.
Absolutely.
And in terms of notice periods, I understand it's 12-month notice periods for any rental changes in terms of, giving up the repossession of the property. Is that still the
Yeah.
case? Even if you've got a 5-year contract, is it just a 12-month notice period?
I
Yeah,
think.
go ahead, Jamil.
Yeah, good. That's all right. That's all right. I think in terms of 5 years contract, I think we have to check with the lawyers on these things. But my understanding for the 12 months contract, yes, it is still there. The landlord has to provide a documented official email or official channel to communicate with the tenant to leave the properties in terms of having a major maintenance, for example, or they having any if the landlord wants to move into the apartment as well, and if they have, for example, the property damaged and need to be maintained.
And what if they just want the tenant moved out because they want to get more rent from somebody else?
No, it is a big issue here. Yeah, this happens many scenarios actually. In my case, where the landlord asked me to leave the properties, and they give me that a 12-month notice for that, and I needed to make sure that he's not going to rent it out for someone, because in that case I can submit a case against him in the land department and provide an evidence that the landlord asked me to leave because he's going to move in, but he didn't move in. He right to rent it out to somebody else with a higher rent, for example. In this case, the land department will look into the case and put some penalties on the landlord.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, so it's like you can't do a no-fault eviction. In other words, the similar thing that we have here, which isn't in law yet, but no, that's interesting because, I mean, end of the day, the tenants are paying fair rent and you are doing rent increases, so there's no reason to remove them, really, unless you're being a bit greedy, let's say. So
yeah, exactly. You have to be some genuine between the tenant and the landlord.
Yeah.
And RERA index is there as well to put the to meet them halfway through. I always have this negotiation with the landlord when they ask me to increase the rent. I've told them, because I'm aware of the law and I've been here in Dubai for 20 years, so I know which channel I have to approach. In case things got to dead end, I'll speak to a lawyer who can advise me how to proceed with these things.
That's great. So that's fair protection for the tenant. Now, the landlord, what's protecting him from, let's say the tenant doesn't pay, bounces a check, just doesn't pay, or doesn't want to leave after he's been given notice. What do you do, or what does the law provide to the landlord to get his money or get the repossession?
I think there's the right channel in Dubai Land Department where they have dispute resolution there, and if they can go straight to the land department, or he can seek legal advice from legal cover, and the lawyer, as Mina said, the lawyer who's always up to date with the new laws in the UAE, he can give him the right advice in moving forward, whether is submitting a real case or they were negotiating and settle down things in terms of the payment and leaving the apartment.
And just to add to that as well, Jamil, I think the main key things to remember, it's case by case, right? So what is the reason for a late payment? What is the kind of property? What is the actual status currently right now? Has promises been made to make the payment or not? Is there sort of ghosting happening between the tenant and the landlord that they haven't even responded to the landlord's communication? So we need to assess all of that. And that's the good thing about the review with the lawyers, because then they can tell us, look, we need to write them a strong letter. We need to do some prevention before we actually escalate anything further. When we, before even looking at escalating to courts or anything like that, we want to actually see if this can be resolved and can find a compromise. And typically when you even go into the Ejari contract, there's obviously rules in there, right? So you have to have your Emirates ID, all these kind of things. So and the phone number, there's always points of contact. So we can actually help the landlord find the best route to resolution. Because for them, the end of the day is just to look, if I'm owed a certain figure or commercial amount, please give me a settlement time and period, and let's find an agreement and move that forward. That's typically what we want to achieve. But if it's a more resilient case from the tenant's side and we need to really support the landlord further, there's ways we can escalate as well to help.
Okay, so best and worst case scenarios, what's the timescales, would you say, to either getting the money back or getting your property back from the landlord's perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. From my perspective, it's a very difficult one to answer because there's so many different cases, right, and different types of scenarios. Typically, what we do and what we try to do is find the solution as soon as possible, right? So the whole idea is we need to contact the tenant. Let's make the effort to contact the tenant. Let's give them the notifications they need, so they know what current situation it is, and there is a possibility to escalate if they don't start to help and comply and come to the table and start moving things forward. So to give you a rough estimate, rough amount, I would want to give you something I'm not sure of as well. The answer.
So this is where your services really come into effect, because obviously you're on a subscription basis. So can you explain a bit about that, and what does that cover? Does that cover the court cases, the lawyers' fees, or just explain that a bit more for our audience?
Of course. So typically when you go to any legal firms, the first thing that you get quoted is sort of a high barrier of entry where there's a billable hour rate. So that's the traditional system. So, for working with our lawyers, we're going to bill you an X amount, let's say a figure between 2,000 to 3,000 dirhams per hour, right? How our approach is very different is we say that we're going to give you a fixed set of hours and we package that. So I'll say for 6 hours of legal work and support and advice consultations from our lawyers, we're going to charge you around the 3,000 dirham mark for 6 hours. And what does that 6 hours include? It could be an Ejari contract review. If you're, for example, an investor and you want the lawyers to review your sales and purchase agreement before you buy a property in Dubai, they can review all of that for you. They can give you amendments. They can write letters for you, for the developer to, fix things that they need to on the contract. If you're family coming here, for example, when we're referring it back to the rental part, if you need to review the process of actually even applying for investor visa or actually rental visa, or you're coming in for a job, even the job you're applying for, in order to get the visa here and that contract that you're signing, we can review all of that for you and make sure, you're protected, your family's protected, or you as an individual, as a professional coming to move here, you're also protected. So there's many ways you can use the actual hours. The separation between legal advice and representation is clear. Advice means, again, I'm your in-house lawyer without the in-house bill. So that means basically the lawyer isn't taking any action on my behalf, but they're in my team. They're advising me on everything, every contract I'm about to sign, every agreement I'm about to enter, to make sure my perspective and my position is always protected. If the lawyer wants to, again, if I want to issue a lawyer to get me to represent me in court, for example, in a case I'm going into, or take an action on my behalf, then I have to sign a power of attorney and go into representation. And that's where the separation of our services begin. So we can cover everything up until the point of representation.
So just to get this right, you're on an advisory service, which have got lawyers working with you to back up that advice. But when it comes to actually acting on that advice, if it's the individual doing it on their behalf, that's fine. Yeah. If they want you to act on their behalf, then obviously that's a separate fee agreement.
Exactly, because any action a lawyer needs to take, they also need to get power of attorney, right? I can't do something on behalf of Mina if I don't have his approval to do something on his behalf. That's why we call that representation under any law in the world, basically. Yeah.
So would you not think about doing a monthly subscription, or is it always by the hour packages?
It all depends on, so we do monthly and yearly, right? So to give you an example, even if you want to buy a 12-hour package, right, that's about 3,960 when you pay for the year. And a 12-hour package basically means, if you pay the 3,960, the full amount, you get access to all 12 hours straight away. If you pay monthly, so that figure is about 399 dirhams per month, that means you get access to 1 hour per month. So it all depends on the setup and how and when you want to use the lawyers.
Okay. Does that monthly accumulate? So if you haven't used it in month 11, you get 11 hours, or is it just lost every month?
No, it's not lost. It's always accumulated. Yeah, it's always there. So you've got 12 months to use up. I always say to us, look, think about car insurance. When you get a car, you get car insurance because just in case you have an accident, right? So some people might not see the reason for it straight away. But what if you get into a legal issue at work, you get into a legal issue with an accident on the road, or for example, you're trying to buy a property or rent a property. And again, we spoke about a couple of these examples. Having that there is also insurance, right? That's the whole point of these kind of subscription plans. And then the other side of it is if you see you need a lot of hours up front, paying for it up front means that you can use at least, that 3 to 4 hours initially, and then keep the rest as and when ad hoc you have issues that you want to help you want to get help from the lawyers from.
Yeah, sure. So about 4,000 dirhams for the year is about £800, I think, in GBP, or just over or just under, depending on the exchange rate.
Yeah.
But that's quite interesting because I didn't think that there'd be issues with the SPA, but you're saying that obviously there could be. And if you're about to buy something at 200,000 or a million or £2 million, it doesn't seem like a lot of cost to get your services to cover the SPA. Then it covers the rental agreement if you're an investor. It seems quite a logical choice to make.
It's, again, peace of mind. That's what you're paying for, right? And this SPA, the sales and purchase agreement example I gave you of, it's coming from a live client that I'm working with. And like you said, it's a big investment. And for them to go to a normal legal firm, and there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but when they come to us, they see a difference is because, look, I'm just paying for the advice part. I don't want you guys to do anything for me. I just want you to check before I sign anything, am I making the right decision, or do I need to question a couple of things? And that's the whole point. And like you said, it could be a massive investment. It could be a small investment. And the whole point is just peace of mind throughout the whole process and building that trust and clarity with us and the firms that we work with.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, some people don't understand that with Dubai, the SPA could include things like if it's a short-term rentals are allowed in the apartment, whether you're allowed to make any changes at all, or what can you change, what can't you change. What else comes into an SPA in terms of issues you've normally faced?
I think it's just hesitancy from the developer side. What kind of reputation do they have? Do the lawyers that we have that have got experience in real estate, are they happy with how this developer has been behaving in the past couple of years? Is there anything there that we can assist them on to, again, give them more trust, peace of mind in that they're moving forward and taking the right steps? Again, those kind of things, there's different variables, but that's why I would say, it comes up. And then other things is, what does my payment plan look like if I'm signing this? What is upfront? What is, agreed on? What happens if I miss a payment? What's the, worst case, best case scenario? Things like that come up as well.
Yeah, because you can put delays into that agreement and
it
all depends on the SPA. And obviously, if there's a delay after 12 months, then the developer has got penalties, but that will be in the SPA as well, I assume.
Exactly. And this is all about individuals, right? We're talking about individuals, right? So that's why we have individual plans and we have the company and business plans. That's separate as well. So that's the whole idea, is that you get more hours when you're a company, and especially when you're investing in the UAE. So we recently have a US manufacturing client. They manufacture pipes and water systems, and they want to also start manufacturing in the UAE. So they need to get a multi-year plan together to rent out a warehouse where they can actually have their factory and have a strong tenancy agreement that protects their interests, that's aligned with the landlord and them as the tenants. So again, we went through that whole process. So I'm giving you an example from an individual, but also from a company perspective. And of course, that comes with a higher price package. But the whole idea is you're dealing with a company now, not an individual. So that's why we price them to an appropriate level for each one.
Well, I think my audience and obviously your should be coming to you, because it seems like a no-brainer from my point of view. Two things I want to cover as well quickly is, if a developer doesn't finish his development and your money's tied in escrow, how quick and easy is it to get that money back? And is that something you cover as well?
Yeah, we do. We do a lot of unpaid invoices. Actually, Jamil, how many requests do you get? How many requests I get? There's a lot of, it happens quite often.
So many, yeah.
But, go ahead, Jamil, if you want to say.
Absolutely, yes, of course. So the payment disputes gonna come to the picture, and lots of lawyers will be able to handle these kind of things. The first things first is reviewing the contract again and make sure the buyer side is protected against these things. And back again to the SPA as well. So some of the things that the common risk when you have the SPA in place, just to make sure the completion delays from the developer side, what will happen in this case? The refund terms, it should be tested and make sure everything on the other side, the change in the size as well, and the area variations, the service charges as well, it has to be included. So lots of aspects or clauses can be checked and verified by legal cover lawyers.
And do you find developers are quite open to making these changes, even though they've got a standard agreement and their development's doing really well and they're selling out within hours? Are they still willing to make these certain adjustments, or do you find it's a hard case and they say, no, we don't need to, we don't have to, we're not going to?
It depends on the developer actually. Some of them they're open to discuss these things. Some of
Mm.
them they're not open for this. I think before buying any properties here, you have to the buyers has to check the reputation of the developers that he's buying, and are they be able to deliver the units
It's important,
for
I think.
previous customers.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And the service chargers as well, how they manage the properties, do they have the internal team, internal facility management, all these kind of questions that the investor need to ask himself before actually proceed with this. And nowadays, the competition is very high in Dubai. For
Mm.
the last few years, we have seen lots of developers coming into the pictures and lots of new buildings in place. And the competition started now in terms of offering a custom build units or villas. They're offering water parks within the communities, huge parks, mosques, schools, and all these things. So they've been more competitive side of the real estate industry here in the UAE. But some of them, back to your question, some of them they be open to discuss these things. Some of them they don't. So the buyer has to do some homework before proceeding in this.
No, it makes sense. And as we're property people, so we normally ask those questions before we sign up a developer anyway. But we always sometimes hit by issues as well. So just quickly coming back to escrow. So if a developer, you put the money into escrow and a developer stops the development for any reason, that escrow money comes back to you straight away, or is there a delay?
I think it will take time to the court review. It depends on the agreement as well, and this is
Okay.
where also we're coming into the pictures. Some of the cases it takes time. It depends on the number of the investment and the value and the contract itself. So I think it's the best case scenario is to seek an advice from the lawyers, from legal cover, and they will give you the right indication, time frame, costs, all related details need to be aware of.
Excellent. They can just call you up and check your website and have a quick.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
I think again to point to that point specifically, Jarvish, is like before I even put my money into the developer, into the escrow, sort of fortune favors the prepared mind, right? So it's having that time, that strategic advice, that plan with the lawyers before you even make the investment, so they know exactly where your money is going to be held if things go wrong. What happens when things go wrong? How do we rectify that, and how do we help you find a quick resolution as well? So that can all be upfront given through the advice and the strategy that we can play with the support from the lawyers.
Yeah, one question I wanted to ask is, as a broker, we have issues as well sometimes with maybe a developer not paying us, maybe just going circumventing, or even clients. So do you help in that side of things as well?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the main thing is to remember is that whatever you're working with in whatever situation in the UAE, whatever direction that can be, as a broker, you've got agreements here that you've signed, and there's terms on there that haven't been met, and there's gaps. For example, in unpaid invoices, or things haven't been transferred to your way. The lawyers can review all of that for you. And again, that points back to the strategy sessions, is to actually understand the whole situation. That's always takes, at least, if we talk about it honestly, about 3 to 4 hours to see what's going on, a couple of meetings with yourself and the legal team. And that's all packaged in to protect you from rising prices when it comes to legal costs. And the whole idea behind that is how to make the right decisions and how to pursue this in the right way through the protection of the UAE law based on what you've signed on, based on the agreement we agreed on. So yeah, we're definitely happy to help anyone that's got ongoing issues. And also understand, what they've tried so far and what hasn't worked, so the lawyers can come up with the right chess move and strategy for you.
Or even if it needs to, they can write a letter, and then obviously you're charged for that letter, I suppose. But that can be done on your behalf.
Yeah, not necessarily, because we do have the packages that include letters, right? Because again, if you're sending the letter, or if legal cover is sending a letter, we're the ones sending it for you, or you're sending it, and we're drafting it through with the lawyers, then it's different to a lawyer sending an actual legal notice. And that's the escalation. Because if I send you a legal notice today, that basically means there's no room for quarrel. We're going to court after this if you don't answer, basically. But a legal letter is like a notification. It's like a first prevention.
Okay. So you cover that within the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's interesting as well.
Yeah. So it's separate to what we call a legal notice, because that is representation if you send out a legal notice. So that is a separate service, yeah.
And how busy are the courts there? Is it quite straightforward, quite quick?
It's different to anywhere in the world, and I think this is where, in respect to UAE, why I love it so much, because they do things very differently, but they do it in their perspective as it is, the country and how they operate. The specific rules, you have to engage with the courts, and it's for the locals, if you're speaking Arabic, that's obviously something that also comes into play. So whenever you're going to courts, you should always consider representation, because that's really where UAE is very different to anywhere else in the world. And I think that's where the advice part, even before going to court, really helps prepare even for that reason, before you even escalate things further. So, yeah.
That's great. Listen, I think we've got a lot of insights from yourselves today, and we thank you for your time. And I really want to jump back onto other podcasts with you and cover other areas. So thank you again for your time today.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you
welcome
for
to the conversation. Yeah, it was great to speak to you as well. Spend time with you as well.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you for listening to Your Pathway to the Emirates podcast. We believe that by staying connected with our podcast and social media channels, you will gain valuable knowledge and stay abreast of the latest developments that may be of interest to you, whether you are an investor, enthusiast, or professional in the industry. Do drop us an email on info@elevation88.com if you wish us to cover any particular topics. So please follow, subscribe, and stay tuned for our upcoming episodes and updates as we continue to bring you engaging and informative content.